Welcome, everybody, to the Firebrand Podcast. This is your host, Grant McGaw, and I am in Miami, Florida. We're going to go all the way to North Carolina. We're going to interview Paul Young. And I'll tell you just a little bit about Paul. How I met Paul was through one of my friends that I've known in the Miami area for about 25 plus years, Richard Thompson. I did not know that they were like best friends. I mean, like super best friends growing up from grade school all the way through high school. And Paul happened to see one of my episodes that I did with Richard down at Atlantis University about LinkedIn optimization, how you can begin to digitize your presence to kind of move forward. He took a real good liking to that. And we became good friends over this last month in which he went through my brand blueprint strategy together. I want to showcase his story because it is impactful. And I think it affects a lot of people that are in his journey today as they begin to look like, where do I go from here? Where am I at now in my, I call the fourth quarter of where we're at in our lives or how we want to live going forward. So Paul, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, yes, my name is Paul Young. I was born in Kingston, Jamaica. I immigrated to the United States in 1980 to attend the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. That's where I met my wife, but it was years after we met before she became my wife. After leaving UNC Charlotte, I joined the Army, and her and I circled back to each other later in life, as it were. I've been married ever since, two young adult children, great people, very proud of them. And that's what I'm most proud of. My family, love my wife, love my kids, and the kids just come over now as young adults. They come over when they find out dad's cooking on the grill. They'll always find their way over. But that's it. Started working for Best Buy, my goodness, right after 9/11. Everybody can remember when where they were on 9/11, and this was just after the birth of my daughter. So that she was my second child. Son was first, and then her, and then went to work for Best Buy. Started out as an hourly employee, and later promoted through to a supervisor, and then to manager, and so on and so forth. And just kind of progressed up the ranks until now. I'm an analyst with Best Buy. What do I analyze? I analyze the things that go wrong and find out how to make them more efficient. In a nutshell, that's what I do. But that's the that's the abridged version of Paul Young, and here we are today.
Man, great journey, great story. Makes you want to come over. Now we're in the springtime. Paul's going to be grilling. I might have to make a stop there to North Carolina for sure. I want to ask you this because this is important. And during our discussions, this became even more apparent and what I was interested in that a lot of people they see Best Buy, they know where it's at, but they don't know it from the corporate world and how it looks from a national lens. I want to know in your 24 years of working at Best Buy, would you say you had a defining moment, that one moment that you really realized that you could help others with your coaching and your leadership skills?
Yes, it was. Everybody has, or should have, or should be fortunate to have what I'd call a champion or a mentor or some guide in their career. And I was fortunate to have that earlier on in my career, a gentleman by the name of David Massey. Um, he was at the time an operations manager, and I was just an hourly employee. And he said something to me that kind of stimulated the thinking, as it were, and had me thinking about where I could go with my Best Buy career. And one of the things he asked me, he said, "How long have you been married?" And at the time, I think it was like 7 years or something like that. And he says, "I can tell you have a great marriage." He said that would translate well into business. Why? Because you have to be in integrity in your relationship. And he said that, believe it or not, that makes a good leader. When you can be completely transparent and honest with people and do that integrity with integrity, you can lead people. He says, I can tell that about you. And I had never thought about until that point making Best Buy a career, but he saw something in me that I wasn't aware that I had seen in myself at the time. But that was the genesis. That's where I started thinking about being a leader within Best Buy.
That is a defining moment. A lot of times when I talk to a lot of different people, and it's one of those moments that it passes through time, you're not really thinking about it, but years later, you kind of go back because it changed your mindset. It started changing the way you saw yourself, in what you're doing from a career standpoint. Now, you shared with me some of and I thought this was incredible as far as the operational challenges like during the pandemic in a story, in a business like Best Buy. Now, can you share a specific moment where your leadership made a measurable impact? And what did you learn from that particular experience you could share with us?
Oh, goodness. Um, when the pandemic started, I was still physically in the stores. It was near the end of the pandemic where I transitioned into my role as an analyst. But by then, the supply chain had been so disrupted that there was a whole cadre of leaders that had to move the company and move the company forward. Um, Severe interruptions in supply chains. Orders that should have taken to be fulfilled a month now took 3 months, 6 months. And you can imagine what that did to sales and uh, client experience, so on and so forth. One of the things that I brought to the team when I transitioned out of the store was my store experience. A lot of people who were working in my role had never worked in the store. They were, for the lack of a better word, they were operational minded. They came from the operation side of the business, even other businesses who were operationally sound. They analyzed data very well. They could tell you, why things happened, uh, but they were not necessarily the best at translating um, what you see in retail to how that manifests itself in the work we do. I'll give you a specific example. Uh, Oftentimes, as an analyst, we're trying to move orders forward. And we're looking at data that gives us client information, phone number, email address, so on and so forth. And believe it or not, when I came onto the team, the relationship of the salesperson with the customer was not valued. In other words, we had all this data at our fingertips, phone number, email address, and we would exhaust these contact methods, but never reach out to the store because we didn't really understand the relationship that our salespeople had with the stores. Just this weekend, Grant, I was in my local Best Buy. And why was I there? My goodness, I was there for um, I was picking up a new light for my Hue system, and on the way out, I saw a couple um, that had been lifelong Best Buy customers, the Funderburks. And I stopped and I spoke with them, and they were so interested to find out how I was doing. Grant, these have been customers for, oh goodness, more than a decade at this local Best Buy, but their joy in seeing me, finding out how well I was doing, and so on and so forth. When you have that type of relationship with your clients, it makes things like managing supply chain interruptions much easier. And oftentimes, the best people to explain what's going on are those who are closest to the clients who have that type of relationship. I think that's what I brought to the team, that understanding of not negating that client employee experience and how to leverage that. That's what I brought to the team.
I think what you just said, I want our audience to truly dig into what you're talking about. We're in an age now of artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, a lot of interaction on the digital world, and there's a lot of buffers between that human to human interaction. And I believe we've devalued that because the technological plan. I've been in information technology 25 years, and I love going to the Best Buy, see all the widgets all over the place and whatnot. But that is to it should be to enable you to communicate better. It shouldn't be a buffer between me and myself, Grant, talking to Paul. And I've seen a lot of organizations, they put a lot of other things in between that and they devalue that. And then people, when to your point, everyone knows there's all kinds of challenges that come up in life. And to present an image that, oh, everything's perfect, like, well, we know it's not. But if you can explain things in a certain way to certain people, they understand. Maybe your widget won't be there on Monday because they're Friday, but here's why. But if that's done only through a technology, so to speak, that just says, hey, your shipment's delayed till Friday, and that's it. There's just no, you just lose the spirit and the soul of the situation that's taking place. And when someone wants to make another decision about, hey, do I go to Best Buy? Do I do this online and at Amazon? Do I go down the street to a Walmart? They can make that decision easily because there's no emotional connection. And I think that's something that we really need to understand. Now, you've talked about during our conversations about a lot of inefficiencies in operations. I wanted you to talk about, first of all, I want you to bring this one back up because this one's kind of struck me when you said during the pandemic that for the first time you had a lot of orders that were ordered by individuals, but they had passed away. And this is on a large level. What do you do with
Yeah.
all that inventory? How do you even think about it? Just talk about, some of those things that come up that you didn't really understand and some of the common mistakes that you see leaders make when these things happen in business performance. And then how can you correct it?
Let's talk about, let's take the last part first. Some of the common mistakes. Um, some of the common mistakes I see are making assumptions and not taking a deep dive into things, asking questions why. Um, the right near the end of the pandemic, as things were starting to open up and people were returning to offices and businesses were opening again and so on and so forth, what was really missed by, I think, the general public was what happened to those orders and product that were in the pipeline. You, Grant, may have made a purchase, 90 days ago, 3 months ago, preparing for a new home. But guess what? That home builder was delayed because of, you know, his inability to get supplies to complete the project, or maybe having employees who were ill. He was behind, so it leaves you behind. You've got thousands of dollars worth of appliances sitting in our warehouse that's not moving. How did you get all that back on track? You can make a lot of assumptions as a leader um, when you're looking at situations like that. You've really got to ask the questions. You've got to to get in. You've got to talk to the contractors. You've got to talk to the builders. You've got to talk to the clients. And oftentimes, what I found was that these things weren't happening in isolation. The contractors knew exactly the challenges that you faced in supply chain because they were facing it themselves. The clients knew exactly what was going on with supply chain because they had reflections of that happening in their own businesses. The only thing that people required was um, integrity. I understand it's bad. Don't just give it to me. Just tell me, give it to me, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Don't sugarcoat it for me. Just be completely transparent. And I think that went a long way. That was my realization that no matter how bad things get, and they were bad during the pandemic, I think integrity is a cornerstone of making things right with people, whether that be business leaders that you deal with, clients that you deal with, and definitely with the employees that you deal with. Just tell the truth. One of the first lessons I learned from my father as a young man, he said to me, just always be honest with me. I don't care how bad things are because I might have to go to bat for you, but give me the truth. Tell me the truth. And that was my first leadership lesson, as it were, and I learned that from my dad, and it served me definitely during the time of the pandemic. Just tell the truth.
I love that. Tell the truth. As I remember saying that we say, especially in the Midwest, tell the truth and shame the devil. That seems to be a common phrase, but it can shed light on a dark situation. There's no doubt about it. You're shedding a little bit of your light, your methodology, how you project your leadership skills, your knowledge, your mindset, how you do things. I think it's important. You shared with me that you have read a ton of books and that you're invited into a lot of different circles within the Best Buy community to share leadership and training. Do you have a methodology that you use to get real business results? Like, what is the Paul Young secret sauce?
Not a secret sauce, Grant. That success leaves clues, right? The most successful people that I have met um, inside of Best Buy and outside of Best Buy are willing to tell their story. They're willing to share their journey. I mean, who doesn't want to, shout from the mountaintop, the wins that they've had. I think the challenge for a lot of us, and when I say us, the people who, are in business, in leadership, or aspire to lead people, is to oftentimes just shut up and listen. Success is out there. You can network with people through books. My goodness, you mentioned the number of books that I read. One of the books that I read that really jarred me um, and really focused my attention on what was asked of me as a business leader was the book. It was called Execution. Larry Boyd Bossy Bodacy. I'll get the name correct, but one of the authors of that book, The Execution, and it just reminded me that the business leader's first objective was to execute, to get it done. Find a way to get it done. Uh, in fact, the subtitle of the book, The Discipline of Getting Things Done. Um, Everyone has opinions on um, how to create the next best gadget and so on and so forth. But you don't really have a leg to stand on until you execute based on what the company has asked you to do. And how do you do that? You find people who are winning and get them to talk, share what has made them successful. And guess what? Oftentimes when you duplicate it, right, you can share in some of the same success. So I've never been one to reinvent the wheel. as it were. I seek out people who are winning and ask them to share with me, their winning strategy and put it to work for myself. And like I said, that can be done by reaching out to a person or through a book, um, even through a movie. You got to be careful there, but yes, no secret sauce, Grant. Find the winners and find out what they're doing and duplicate.
I love that. That's very pragmatic. I call it the blocking and tackling of success. When you look at some of the greater teams in the sports, I like sports analogies, and you look at how they got to where they are, is usually the most disciplined team at the skill, not only just what you call the skill positions, like let's take football, for example, say, hey, you got great quarterback, running back, receivers, but actually it's that offensive line that has to be able to enable those plays to happen, just like on defense and things like that. And you're teaching those things that, hey, if you don't do your job, if you're not doing what you need to do, the rest of the team, we can't get to the result. That's another thing I love about your analogies. Like, we're here to achieve this result. How do we get there? Let's not talk about the ways we didn't get there. Let's not, all the things that we throw out there, like, well, we're not there. That's like being on a ship, right? Or a boat. And you're trying to get to the other side where there's land. Well, just arguing between ourselves is not going to get us there. What is an agreed upon plan that we have? Hey, Grant, you take this, or I'll take this, or we're going to row in this direction together. And then we're going to see progress as we get to that other side by working together. You seem to be a person that can bring that real life experience to people where they can see their role and what they need to do. I wanted to ask you, when people think about, Paul Young outside of yourself, right? And they say, you know what? This is a Paul Young situation. We need to bring Paul in here to help us. Maybe it's with training. Some of the people that haven't been, they may have only got a couple of years in Best Buy. Maybe they're that new hourly employee like you were years ago and didn't really understand, some of the skills that they have, some of the things they bring to the table. What kind of advice would you give to those people?
Wow, that's that's a heavy lift. That's a heavy lift. That's not easy to do. The reason I'm called in oftentimes to explain a new procedure or a new business direction, and I'm called upon frequently in my role now and previous roles. I've been called upon to do that. And I think one of the um, some of the skills that I lean on were the skills that I learned as just a salesperson. And I say just a salesperson. The art of selling is just that, an art. And oftentimes I think that's especially these days with all the technology, right? That's lost on a lot of people. But in a nutshell, if I could, distill it down into its core, you can't treat everyone the same. Grant is different than Richard. Richard is different than Sherry. You know, communicating to my wife is definitely different. Communicating a direction of action, I have to take a different tack with my wife than I do with my daughter. And understanding that you can't treat everyone the same, I think is one of the first things that you have to understand. You gotta study people. Nobody told me when I was getting into this business you had to be a pseudo-psychologist, but you have to study people. You have to understand what motivates people. The same things that give you energy, Grant, may not be the same things that give me energy. There's no cookie cutter, and that's the first realization that you have to have. Not a lot of leaders grasp that. there's a new business directive that comes out, and there is one message that goes out to everyone. And the way that that message is received is not managed, right? You could hear, as an individual, you could hear something that says, hey, you know what, this is the right direction for the company to go in. Or another individual could hear, you know what, man, that makes me apprehensive about my role within the organization and how I fit into this new business strategy. But understanding where everyone is in hearing that message that was given to everyone, I think is key to getting people to buy into um, the strategy or the direction or so on and so forth. And that really came out of years of getting to know people through sales. They always said that, if you are talking, you are not in charge of that sale. Getting your client talking, right? Getting your customer speaking allows you to be in control of that sale. So I get people talking to me. Grant, tell me, what about this direction of the company? Um, what do you see in it for you? What things give you energy? What things make you apprehensive? And just shut up and listen. And people will tell you oftentimes how to, for the lack of a better word, sell to them, how to get them to buy into what it is that you're doing. Um, the art of selling is a dying art, but it's 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 been extremely helpful for me, and it's why I'm called upon again and again. And I think to myself oftentimes, why me? Why am I the best messenger? Not really. I just try to to get people talking to me to understand where they're coming from. Hope that
Well,
answered your question.
no, it did. It did because you again, I love your principles. You're a man of principle. I like that. And I would figure if I were, in a board meeting and needed to get across a great message, I would probably look to a person like yourself because people know you, they like you, right? And they trust you. And your approach allows them, to share. You don't want to be that, in the organization. Some of these organizations are like just a bunch of yes men. I mean, everything's yes, no matter what. There's no pushback. There's no gathering of new intel of how this is really going to work. And being a person that, like myself, I've been in information technology again for a long time, and we've seen a lot of projects fail not because of the technology of itself, but of the adoption of the technology,
Mhm.
right? It sounded great, but when you put it out into the field, as I say, you put it out into action, you put it out into the wild, really how this was going to work, and you say, wow, this did not go like we thought it was going to go, and it might fail completely miserably. And a lot of times you say, oh, that's poor tech. No, it's poor leadership. It's poor leadership because you didn't anticipate this and you made assumptions, expensive assumptions
Mhm.
of how this was really going to roll out. I'm going to challenge you right now. I want you to write the Paul Young book. You've got 24 years of retail experience understanding how the retail business actually works, even from a supply chain area to a training and leadership area. The retail business is probably in the trillions of dollars as far as in this country. But leadership in this world is like, how do you pick this up? As you even stated, 24, 25 years ago, you're coming into this business. How do you learn this retail business? Not just your particular role, but understanding the world of retail from a lens that I can actually appreciate and want to participate in even more. I think you've got a best-selling book in you. We want to know when it's coming out.
It's it's interesting that you should say that. I've over the years I've thought about doing it, and it's how do I put it? It's not necessarily a book about ins and outs of business success and so on and so forth. Granted, it's a people book. It's a book about people, the people that I've met along the journey I would be hard pressed to think that I'd meet these people, have these experiences um, outside of retail. Quick story, I was working for an organization. This was before Best Buy, so I'm going back even before the Army. Goodness, I'm going back several years. But long story short, um, I started helping a client and found out that he was Scottish. And we were talking back and forth and so on and so forth. And he asked me about my heritage and where I was from. And Grant, my father was a World War II veteran, and he did his service in England for the Royal Air Force. Well, come to find out, this gentleman that I was speaking to was in the same unit in World War II as my father, and he was writing a book, right, about his experiences in World War II. And, I was able to get him and my father to connect. My father is now passed at the ripe age of 97, but before he did, he had tons of stories. And, he actually made a contribution to this book. I would have never met this person. I am amazed at the depth of people that I meet uh, in retail. That was just one story. I don't know if you know the coach Larry Brown. He was instrumental in bringing a lot of teams along, and his relationship with player Allen Iverson is legendary. You've seen that interview with Iverson talking about practice. Are we
Yeah.
going to talk about practice? Practice? Not the game. But Larry Brown was his coach at the time, and what Larry Brown was trying to communicate was a level of professionalism, right? You are the leader, you are the franchise player. There's a certain level of leadership. I got a chance to meet Larry Brown. So if I were to write a book about retail, the thing that inspired me, that kept me going, that and gave me energy were the people that I met, the stories that I learned, and that real genuine love of people, the ability to connect with people, so on and so forth. They say if you're really enjoying the things that you're doing, it's not really considered work. And I've really had a lot of fun meeting the people that I've met, and it's amazing. I'm amazed that there are people in this world who would rather work with computers, um, and that's fine. Just work with technology and numbers and digits and so on and so forth. But there are people that are energized by working with other people. When you find those people in your organization, turn them loose. Just set them on the path and get out of the way. And that's what the book would be about. Understanding people and finding what their passionate is, and just clearing the way for them. Remove the obstacles and let them do their thing. So
I want to read that book. That's a beautiful thing as we get kind of back to some ground roots about people and the beauty of humanity. That's a beautiful story you just talked about because you don't know who you're, interacting with until you get deep with them and really have a conversation. Then all of a sudden you start tying together those realities. Someone said there's like 6 degrees of separation between each human being. We need to find out what that 6 degrees is by talking to each other. Before we conclude, we worked together for the last month or so. I want you to share with the audience, like, did you enjoy this experience? Did you find this helpful for you? Is this something that you would share with others?
it's definitely something that I would share with others. Um, in my particular case, and I would think that many people in my role find themselves in the same in the same track, as it were. You have your head down and you're working day to day, month to month, year to year. You are participating in a business. You're growing a business. You're raising your family. You're paying your bills. You get tunnel vision. And then one day somebody asks you to just kind of slow down for a moment and take a look and see what your journey has been. And I think that's what this process has done for me. This is the first time in, 2 decades that I've actually slowed down, turned around, and saw the path that I have created, right? And started to take inventory of the things that got me from there to here over the 2 decades. Um, I Until I started taking inventory, I didn't realize um, how all these pieces fit together. And to be able to articulate how the pieces fit together, to understand what value that has in the marketplace, and to monetize that value is something that I had not given a lot of thought to. Tunnel vision, head down, day in, day out, week in, week out, project from this project to the next project, and just waiting for the next project to begin and to be called in again and to bring my skills to bear on the next directive, to be assigned to the next mission. That's been my life over the 20 years. But just stopping for a moment, turning around, and says, "Oh my goodness, look at that! That's a path there, right? That's amazing. That's been the most eye-opening, one of the most eye-opening things to me about this experience, and I definitely recommend it to my friends, colleagues, so on and so forth, because oftentimes you don't think you have time to slow down. You're go, 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 go. Especially in the corporate world, it's not what have you done for me, it's what have you done for me lately. Go, go, go. Slow down for a moment and take inventory. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
Now, well, thank you for sharing your story, sharing what is, I think, a very good skill set that you possess, and that you sharing that now with my audience, and they can really take stock to what you just said. Of just stop for a minute, take a look, and it's very hard to see yourself without another person helping you along the way, and that is what I do as a guide. To get you to your next level in life. This has been wonderful talking with you today, Paul. Let the people know how to contact you on LinkedIn, and then we'll wrap up, and we will see you again the next time.
All right. You can find me at LinkedIn, Paul Young at Best Buy on LinkedIn. And Grant, we will see you the next time. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. And I invite your entire audience and the entire Best Buy family to tune in to all the episodes and follow brand at 5. That's number 5. Star, STAR, BDM. That's B for brand, D for development, infomasters.com. This has been wonderful. Thanks again, Paul, for being on the show.
Thank you. Take care. Bye
Bye.
bye.